Hello, everyone. This is Trey Jadlow. I'm here again on this 14th day of March with my new friend Ben Crandall. Somebody we met on Facebook on a thread, and it was a thread I think that I had posted. I think I may have posted it in the comment part on this video. But anyway, we're discussing going back and forth specifically on an argument for the existence of God, and Ben had posted an argument, and I asked him if he would be willing to do a hangout. He said, sure. So I'm very grateful to have you here, Ben. Welcome.
Oh,
Would you mind telling me just a little bit about yourself? That's why I don't say anything usually before we start. I like to just start because I like to keep kind of spontaneous. And if you're comfortable, tell me a little bit about yourself. Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a music teacher. I'm actually at my school where I teach music right now. Got some music in the background.
Uh-huh.
I live in Austin, Texas. I went to school for music. I've always had an interest in philosophy as a hobby. I was interested in science a lot as a kid and thought about going into science, but music won out. So,
cool.
Is there anything specific you want to know?
No, that's fine. So you're not married, right?
No.
Okay, and you have what is your forte instrument or instruments? Are you a poly instrument?
I teach a few different instruments. I teach mostly guitar and piano, but I also do cello and bass and some drums and banjo.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Boy, it'd be fun to hang out with you, I think. That'd be great.
You play music?
I do not. No, I just enjoy it. I'm pretty much an all thumbs guy. I'm sure some of the people watching here, if JD's watching, he's giving a thumbs up to that. But I'm a dental technician. I make teeth for a living, and I live in the Kansas City area. I'm on the Kansas side of Kansas City, and I'm pretty much uneducated. I took about I tried to go to college and I flunked out rather quickly. But I'm about 48 years. Oh, actually, I'm 48. I'm gonna be 50 here in June of this year. I've got 6 kids, ages 26 down to 12. Well, he just turned 13. So 26 down to 13, 3 boys, 3 girls. Sadly, I'm divorced. My wife left me a few years ago. But other than that, I just have an interest for. I'm not fascinated really with philosophy. I'm just fascinated with answers, and however I can get those, I enjoy it. So I'm kind of an autodidact. I'm an unconventional learner. I work alone, so that enables me the privilege of listening to stuff as I work. So that's what generally I do all day long. Is I just listen to things. I'm an auditory learner, and so I enjoy doing things with my hands because my mind's always wandering if I'm reading and stuff. So I pretty much like to learn as I listen. But I'm a big fan of R.C. Sproul. You probably never heard of him, but he's a theologian. And
I have heard a little bit, but I don't know him very well.
Okay, well, and he's a theologian, but his
is he like a reformed epistemological kind of school, what's the big one?
Van Til or Bonson?
Yeah, Van Til. Yeah.
No, he is not, and this is what makes him weird. He is a reformed. He's a Presbyterian. He's from the Reformed camp. It's really funny, but he's the minority report in that community. He's very different in that sense, and I am a big opponent of presuppositionalism because the same problems you would probably have with it, I do as well. What's that?
I said good.
Yeah. So R.C. Sproul would call himself a classicist, which you're going to use basically. You're going to focus on atomistic proofs, but is not an evidentialist though, because an evidentialist deals with probabilities. Like William Lane Craig or somebody might be a one who deals with probability.
Tim McGrew.
Yes, Tim McGrew would probably call himself an evidentialist as well. And evidentialists are going to deal with probabilities. They're going to say, well, it's more probable than not that God exists when you look at all the evidence in a cumulative case. And a presuppositionalist is going to say, we're dealing with certainty. I want to find out what's true. In order to know anything, you've got to presuppose God. And so it's kind of funny. I'm kind of a hybrid in between there because I'm looking for certainty, But I do not believe you can have certainty by presupposing God, because the only one that can know God immediately is God. You can only know yourself. You can't presuppose somebody else. It must be revealed to you. So epistemologically, I'm going to say ontologically, God is necessary, but epistemologically, we cannot start with God. Only God can start with God. We must start epistemologically with ourselves and our own minds and intellects. And a presuppositionalist get all upset and saying, "Oh, you're trusting man's rationality over God's rationality." I'm saying I can't start with God's ontology, because I'm not God, and so I must understand it. But anyway, so my argument that I posted, and the one we were talking about, is an argument based on the causal argument for existence, and it's really based in the law of non-contradiction. And so I don't think that it's possible for a contingent creature to have absolute certainty of anything. It's not possible, because you got to be omniscient to know anything with absolute certainty. It's only God, if he exists, is that one who has absolute certainty. However, with my argument, my knowledge of the existence of God is more sure than the fact that I'm talking to you, or the fact that I know that I'm putting my hand in front of my face because my senses trick me. But my argument is an analytic one, starting with my own existence and understanding that I, as the inquirer, must exist. I must have basic sense perception in order to begin my inquiry. And then I also must have the instrument of the law of non-contradiction, or rational coherence, in order to filter that information that I'm getting with my senses. Now, I don't need to, I can even be a solipsist. I'm fine with that, as long as I can know that I, as a solipsist, epistemologically exist. That's all I need. And I know that by looking at myself, understanding myself, that I myself do not exist necessarily, that I was born, that I'm changing, and that I am contingent in my nature. And if in fact I am contingent in my nature, then I'm obviously not self-existent. And if I'm not self-existent, I must be depending upon that which gives me existence. And if you extrapolate back, it's got to be something somewhere with the attribute of self-existence must have given me existence. Otherwise, I would not be. And so, and again, my argument is based upon causality, which is just an application of the law of non-contradiction. Something cannot be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. So if I know that I am an effect in this essence, then there must be a cause, and that would be God. And it's an analytic truth. And like I said, I can't know anything absolute certainty, but I can know that I can have a certainty that is the most certain thing that I can know as a contingent creature. If I have the law of non-contradiction, if I have basic reliability sense perception, just to know that I, as the inquirer, my sense to know that I exist. I don't care about the external world. All I need is me to begin with.
How do you get from the law of non-contradiction to, how do you derive that from the law?
Okay, the law of non-contradiction says that something cannot be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. Okay, so if I happened, then it logically follows that I'm not eternal. Okay, and if something,
sorry, say that again.
If I happened, in other words, if I was born or if I changed, then I know that I'm not existed eternally. And something cannot pop out of non-existence into existence by itself. It cannot be and not be at the same time and in the same relationship.
Keep going. I have tiny issues with that, but
okay. Well, and that's what we're here to talk about. All right. So there are only 4 possibilities if something exists. Again, all this stuff I got from R.C. Sproul. He's got in fact, the guys on G+ are parsing R.C. Sproul and tearing him apart, at least in their own imaginations.
If you have any recommendations, I'm always for.
Okay. Well, this is the series.
A lot of people on Facebook know that. When people recommend things, I do read them. Right now I've been reading like Aquinas and Aristotle and all that. So
good. That's great. That's great. And I think we need to be open-minded and look at the other side and listen to. But everything I've got here, basically, I've got 3 series that are foundation for pretty much everything that I have that R.C. Sproul has done. One of them is called The Consequences of Ideas, which is R.C. Sproul's overview of Western philosophy. I've never seen anything like it. I've looked at several series and they don't even come close. And it's just an overview. It's not an in-depth study, but it's an overview of that. But he's able to take the diversities of all the philosophical understanding and unify them into a coherent tapestry of history. It's beautiful. I've always said that I think R.C. Sproul's the greatest unified thinker alive. Not that he's the smartest man necessarily. He is very intelligent, but that he can take the diversities and unify them into coherence. He can make coherence out of chaos better than anybody I've ever seen. All right, so the consequences of ideas, and it's a book as well. I've not read the book. And then it's also a video series. And this is on YouTube as well. The second one is Defending Your Faith, which is his view of his Christian apologetic, and it's this is what the guys are critiquing on the Google Plus realm, and it's a 25 series. It's 25 20-minute lectures that he does, but he also has a book called Defending Your Faith as well. And I've not read that either, and I think the videos probably are at least as or more detailed actually than the book. I would guess for Defending Your Faith, 'cause I don't think it's really a long book.
I would make a recommendation that there's ways they have readers a lot of times, because I also have a lot of times where I'm commuting and other things, and I listen to a lot of things as well. And I use they have things that'll translate text into audio. You
can do that, or you can both of those series are on Sermon Audio as well. You can download the audio for free. Sermon Audio is just a Christian. They get sermons there, but R.C. Sproul, a lot of his stuff. And those two, I just found that out. In fact, if you go to my Google Plus page, I think I've got it all linked, both the videos and the audio on my homepage on Google Plus. All right. So, and then the third one is I think it's called Justification by Faith Alone. And it's his historical view of the doctrine of justification by faith. And actually, he goes in and he first introduced me to Aristotelian causality, which is very fundamental to what I'm doing in that series. In fact, I'm listening to it again. I haven't listened to it for a long time, and I love it. So those three: his overview of philosophy, his Christian apologetic, and then his explanation of the historical context of the gospel are the three kind of foundation, the trifecta, if you will, that kind of inform me for who I am. And I told my atheist counterparts that, if you can learn that, if you can debunk that, you'll knock me off my horse, because I'm like a little Jehovah's Witness. I don't know that much, but I know these little things that I know of these three series. I know them pretty well, and it pretty much informed everything that I'm in. And I joke that I'm pretty much a one-trick or two-trick pony. I argue for the existence of God by creation, by existence, and then secondly by moral law, and that'd be Romans 1 and Romans 2 are the two areas which I'm kind of a two-trick pony, I guess, and people get upset with me because I argue in the same circles, but I think I'm kind of a reductio thinker. I like to reduce things down to somebody gives an argument and I'll extrapolate it as far as I can and then see where it leads. And I seem to have a gift for that. I just realized that recently. It's like I just seem to be able to, somebody will say something, I can parse it and go to the nugget, and people get upset at me because I always go back to the same thing, because I say, well, that's where it starts, and let's go back and let's strip off all the accoutrements and the extras, and let's look at the fundamentals of what we're arguing for, and then see where it goes and if we can make sense of it. And that's what I'm seeking to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be good. Sometimes, though, things do get lost in the details. Sometimes I know, just thinking about physics, a lot of times people even professional physicists, they'll say something on popular television or in popular press, mm-hmm. and when you read about what the actual specifics are, it's a lot different, but they're trying to make it accessible. And I think a lot of times they do harm, because they're trying to explain it in a way, they'll dumb it down, a common thing like general relativity, where the curvature, a lot of times people describe it as it's like a bowling ball on a trampoline or whatever. But of course, that all presupposes gravity and curvature. It basically assumes everything that it's the illustration is supposed to get across. It does help you kind of visualize the general idea.
Right, but it breaks down.
Obviously, it loses a lot of the important details of why it's so interesting.
Yeah, and that's what you got to watch out when you're trying to popularize something, is to dumb it down to the point where you actually lose the content. And that's what R.C. Sproul, his specialty is. He takes these arcane ideas and he brings them down to the pedestrian level. His whole ministry is focused on being a bridge between the seminary and the Sunday school class, in essence. And he's really gifted at that, is simplifying things. But he doesn't simplify them to the point where they lose their content. So that's one of the reasons I really like him.
Cool. I mean, I don't know which way you want to go with it. I mean, I presented that one argument.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it okay? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to screen share it, and we can talk about it if you'd like. That'd be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, hold on.
You probably can do it either. I could, so.
I'm not. Oops. I got to figure out how to do this. I'm not.
I saw it for a brief second.
Yeah, and then it went away, and now I don't see it. Maybe I turned it off. Hold on. Okay. Share.
And
okay,
and not to undermine it before I even start, but this is something that I came up with off the top of my head. So.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, and I didn't even parse it that well. And like I said, because I got to P2, and that's where I had a problem with it. So, tell you what, why don't either you or I just read it?
Read it, I guess.
Okay.
Premise 1, God is unchanging. Premise 2, temporal change / becoming is a real objective fact of the contingent universe. Premise 3, from 2, it follows that there are temporally indexed facts. For instance, the fact today is Wednesday is, well, it was true at the time. It kind of illustrates the point, but will be false tomorrow. Just as it is not false that it's not Wednesday, it's Monday. Premise 4, from 3, it follows the fact that facts change. Premise 5, in order to have true beliefs of temporally indexed facts, one's beliefs must conform to those facts. For instance, my belief that it is Wednesday to be true, it must conform to the current fact that it is Wednesday, or whatever day it happens to be. Premise 6, from premise 3 and premise 5, it follows that in order to have true beliefs about temporal facts, those beliefs must change. Premise 7, God knows all true beliefs. Premise 8, from premise 6 and premise 7, therefore God's beliefs change. Premise 9, premise 8 contradicts premise 1, therefore from these assumptions we get a contradiction. Conclusion, therefore one must reject one of the premises to remain logically consistent. And I will emphasize that one must reject either one of the primary premises, the ones that aren't don't deductively follow from the previous premises, or you could also challenge one of the inferences.
Okay, cool. All right, so and originally I had said you had made P2 temporal change or becoming is a real objective fact of the universe. And I said, would you change that to the contingent universe? And you said, sure. Or somehow I made an objection, and you said, yeah, I can change it to contingent universe. All right, so when you change that from the fact of the universe, in saying all that is, when you set contingent, you change it from all that is from instead of being temporal change becoming is a real objective fact of all that is, in essence, is to temporal change and becoming is a real objective fact of all that is dependent. And so therefore it doesn't logically follow from God is unchanging, because God is not contingent. And so P2 doesn't even relate to P1. So you started two arguments with that second.
I think it when I was reading it, it highlights one of the facts. When I wrote it, it was Wednesday, so it was true to say that, for instance, today is Wednesday. Mm-hmm. But now, that same proposition is false, and unless you think that all facts are what are called tenseless or not, like for instance, somebody could, a lot of people in light of like general and special relativity believe that all facts are tenseless. That you could say, instead of saying tomorrow this happens or yesterday such and such happens, you would have to say or you could say Monday, March 4th, or Monday or Tuesday, March 15th, such and such happened, and Sunday, March 12th, so and so happened, and that would capture all the facts. Right. That everything, you could say it in a timeless way. That there's a timeless way to express everything that is true. But if there's not a timeless way to express everything that is true, then that means certain truths are not timeless and change with time.
Right. And so so you're basically, making a delineation between an A theory of time and a B theory of time. And
yes, I think this isn't a problem if you have a B theory. There's a lot of names for it. It's called the B theory of time, the eternalist theory of time, the four-dimensionalism. This isn't a problem if you reject that time. That's why I said a real objective fact of the contingent universe. If it's not merely, I feel like it's today, but that's just because I'm in today, but yesterday also exists, and tomorrow still exists, or does exist, and it all exists as like a block. They also call it a block universe. Mm-hmm. If that is true, then there is no problem. That isn't true, and tomorrow doesn't exist, yesterday doesn't exist, and it's like a fact of the. I mean, it's like either it's a fact of the universe or it's not. So. And
but here's the problem. If you're going to now we're my voice is, we're getting an echo.
I don't hear it on my end, so.
Okay. No, and that just stopped there. Okay, so here's the problem. If you're going to say that you're going to postulate a block universe or a
I'm not postulating a block universe. I think this argument fails if there's a block universe.
Oh.
I'm saying if presentism is true, the A theory is true, then this argument follows. But if it's not true, then it.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm doing: is I'm postulating two separate ontologies, and one of them is necessarily contingent changing, and the other one is necessary and by definition cannot change. And so there's
something can't, as you said with the law of non-contradiction, something can't both exist and not exist.
Yeah, I'm not talking about one ontology. I'm talking about two ontologies.
I know, but I mean, ontology is just everything that exists.
No, it's just the being of something. It's a study of being. But I'm not saying that I'm not a pantheist or panentheist. I am a creationist. That the contingent universe is contingent upon that which gives it existence. So in fact, I would hold the creation ex nihilo necessarily because of that. But that creation or contingency, I mean, that's what the word means. Contingency just means if it were not for that upon which it depends, it would not be.
Actually, have many different meanings. Like a lot of people actually reject, until the 70s, a lot of philosophers rejected what's called metaphysical contingency. And they reserved the word contingency just for propositions that are either aren't necessarily true or necessarily false. Like, for instance, I don't know, my dog went to the park today or something like that.
Yes, but I don't care what philosophers say. I care what's coherent. And what I want to do is not believe somebody because they have a lot of credentials, but rather
you can't just assert something without supporting it. So
that's exactly right. And so that's what I'm saying. How can you have contingent existence, metaphysical? Well, maybe I misunderstood what you're saying. You're saying they're asserting no such thing as metaphysical contingency, but what would that mean? That would be a strict positivist then, where you only have the true, that which is true, which is empirical.
No, well, there are a lot of issues with what's called metaphysical modality. Kripke made it, repopularized it by using I don't know how complicated we want to get, but there a lot of time in modern philosophy, what people, when they talk about like metaphysical modality, they'll talk about possible worlds. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if it's possible that my dog went to the park today, that means that in some possible worlds, my dog went to the park, in other possible worlds my dog didn't go to the park. If it's necessary that my dog went to the park, then in all possible worlds my dog went to the park. And if it's impossible that my dog went to the park, then in no possible worlds my dog went to the park. But it would probably take us on a rabbit trail, but I have a certain degree of skepticism about what that even means, about having like what are possible worlds. It's really, philosophers have a lot of trouble explaining what it means for something to be a possible world. Like are these actual worlds that exist? That's what David Lewis would say. Are they just like Alvin Plantinga would say, they're maximally consistent sets of propositions or something like that? And I guess I'm more simple than that. I like, when you get into that realm, it seems so convoluted that I'm not even sure what the person's talking about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in what's called nomological modality. We could say things about like what's physically possible in the world, what's physically impossible. I don't know what it means to say that like the number 2 is like metaphysically necessary or something like that.
Okay, so you would say that so you would be more Aristotelian in nominalist rather than believing that there are entities that actually exist in perfection, say in a realm of perfection like Plato.
I'd say I'm
you would be a realist. You'd be a more nominalist.
I'm skeptical of realism. I wouldn't say I am a nominalist. I'd say it seems kind of like an odd. I'm not exactly sure what people are saying when they say like the number 2 exists.
Okay,
like,
but you would agree that there is some concept of mathematical concept in a relationship of 2 + 2 in a metaphysical sense that we don't, it's not conventional. We don't make it up. We recognize it and we categorize it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually lean towards, like, even though it's not very popular in philosophy and mathematics, logicism, that somehow like you could derive mathematics from logic, but it's not a very popular position. So, but having read some books on the topic, it's very, very complicated. So I wouldn't say that I have like a firm grasp of any of it.
Well, I don't either, but I know this. I have some people say that, you know, numbers are just, I think JD said this in our hangout. He said something like, oh, well, numbers or math is just something we all agree on. Well, it's not, agree on what? I mean, it's like, not everybody doesn't make it up, and then somehow you can't explain the unity out of diversity. The big thing for me is, for everything, is unity and diversity, and this is what R.C. Sproul focuses on in his series very much. So the great question of philosophy is how to make coherence out of chaos, how to make unity out of diversity, and metaphysics is all about that, I think. So for me, it's like, I'm always going to ask, how do you explain unity and diversity? How do you unify the diversities? How do you explain coherence? And often it's going to be, there's got to be something outside of us that exists. It's like Aristotle didn't invent logic any more than Christopher Columbus invented America. You know, that's what R.C. Sproul says, and I think he's right. We discover such things, and we can put our hooks and hang on them and categorize them in such a way to make it so we can work with it better, but we didn't invent it. And somehow you've got to explain the reality of these, the abstract concepts of mathematical realities that exist. I don't know what I am either. I don't know either, but I just know that I don't respect the idea that says that everybody individually just makes up mathematics and that's how it works. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
I don't know that you either, but I will say it is a little bit more complicated, because people talk about mathematics and logic like they're one thing, but there's actually multiple different kinds of logic, and they're not entirely consistent. There's like Aristotelian logic, there's what are called paraconsistent logics. There are dialectic logics where you can have true contradictions, which normal logic wouldn't let you have, obviously. There's like modal logics. There's a lot of, and there's certain problems with them, like the liar's paradox, that make that, I agree with you. I have the same inclination that I don't think it's just like we invented something. I have like, and I'm reading a bit on this lately, so and like I said, I don't have like settled views. But there are people, I mean, it's hard to say just like logic as if it's like one thing. It's kind of like saying knives are all good at cutting wood or something like that. Sure, there's not one kind of knife. There's a lot of different kinds of knives. They're not necessarily all good at the same thing. And the same with mathematics. I mean, Gödel's incompleteness theorems prove that you can't have, well, it's either that you can't prove a consistent mathematical system that can do arithmetic, or you can have true propositions within mathematics that can't be proven. So, and there's different I mean, for a long time, I was thought Euclidean geometry was like basically like the necessary absolute truth of mathematics. But now most advanced physics is done in non-Euclidean geometries and with like complex like Hamiltonian systems and stuff like that.
Okay, and so, but and here's the problem that I have with it. When you get you mentioned some sort of logic that said contradictory statements, you know, can be true. You can't do that. And I this is one thing that R.C. Sproul has taught me to do, is to question people. And if somebody says something, even if they're the you know, the top level of everything, you know, the Pope of all learning or whatever, he said, you know, he does all the time. Very, very famous theologians, you know, he said it, and they'll say something stupid, and he won't say that, but he'll say, oh, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. And the main thing that we've got to hold on to is the law of non-contradiction. And so if you're going to posit some kind of system that violates the law of non-contradiction, you can't do that.
I'm not positing it. I'm just saying that I mean, there are forms of logic that are coherent but have that allow for true contradictions.
But you can't. You just contradicted yourself. In other words, you're saying it holds the law of non-contradiction because the law of non-contradiction doesn't hold. You see what I'm saying? You have to rely on it in order to. That's
not true. They're called, like, you can have like relevance logics where contradictions hold only within a certain area of relevance. Because even the main Aristotle's big argument against non-contradiction, and there like been very few where, I mean, I don't want to get into this because honestly, I'm not like even saying dialectic logics are like a legitimate thing or whatever. But if somebody was going to defend it, they would say Aristotle had the principle of explosion, that if you have a true contradiction, then everything follows.
Right.
Then something could be a cake and not a cake. Something could, like, the moon is made of green cheese, whatever. But the people that would advocate, that have created, I mean, they've created mathematically rigorous systems of dialectic logic. And in those, they have like one popular strategy is called relevance logic, where if the moon is made of green cheese isn't relevant to like whatever, like the specific propositional contradiction that's being asserted. So it's like it's basically they have different ways of like blocking off systems of propositions so that they don't have explosions. And I mean, like I said, I don't know how much you want to get into this, but like they'll point out like Niels Bohr had contradictory beliefs and mathematical systems were related to the atom. But even though his system was contradictory, that didn't mean you could prove everything within the system. He still had a way of determining within certain domains this was true, within other domains this was true. Kind of like how in modern quantum physics you have a unitary operator that like a photon travels according to like a very specific trajectory until you measure it, and then when you measure it, whatever that means, all of a sudden it locks into a specific non-unitary state where you can't predict precisely where it is.
Right.
And so it's like there seems to be like an inconsistency there, but that doesn't mean that quantum mechanics says anything is true. It just means within certain constraints, something that appears to be not consistent takes place. But that might take us way off on a tangent. Like I said, I'm not even saying dialectic logics are like legitimate.
Well, I'm going to hold to that. I'm going to push back on that and say that dialectic logic is irrational, because even if you want to say that law of non-contradiction doesn't hold within a one set, you're relying on a law of non-contradiction in order to make that statement, in order for it to be true. In other words, you cannot rely on that which you say does not hold in order to not destroy what you say does not hold. Niels Bohr was off his rocker on that. I'm sorry?
That would assume it's a principle that doesn't hold globally instead of within a
It
certain.
doesn't hold in any, when you make the statement that the law of non-contradiction doesn't hold, you're relying upon the law of non-contradiction. The principal explosion is a valid thing. So Niels Bohr, what we need to do with quantum mechanics is not throw up our hands and say, oh, it doesn't make any sense. No, we need to put on our work boots and get to work and stop taking the easy way out. That's the easy way.
I'm not saying there are true contradictions. So I mean, I don't know
I'm
how
just
much
saying,
we want.
I'm not gonna. I want to accept that. If you're gonna say that, I'm not gonna get upset or anything like that. I'm just saying, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I don't see how you can do it because you have to rely
I
on
understand that. I think that's fair enough. I mean, there's issues, but like, I mean, this might take us on a big tangent. Then how would you solve the liar's paradox? This proposition is false. That's a statement. Is it true or false?
It's just a word trick. It's just a game. In other words, it's like saying I can't speak a word of English.
It's a logically valid. I mean, that's part of logic. You can make that statement in logic. This proposition is false.
Yes, and the proposition cannot be true in one sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in another sense, it must be true. So it depends on how you want to analyze it.
So it's neither true nor false?
It's true in one sense, and it's false in another, but it doesn't violate the law of non-contradiction because you're looking at it from a different angle.
Well, what sense? I mean,
different relationship.
Okay, this might take us on a big tangent. So I mean, I'd be more interested in getting back to the other conversation.
Sure.
But saying it's true in one sense and not true in another isn't like a logically you'd have to spell out exactly what that means logically.
Well, it's just when you parse the terms in such a way. Well, I'll put this back up here. When you parse the terms in a certain way.
I could say that of any contradiction. I could say like, well, it looks like a contradiction, but it's just true in one way and not true in another. Like, am a person and not a person. It sounds like it's a contradiction, but it's just, there's, I mean, that could be used as an escape route for any thing.
Okay. Well, I don't see how, because the argument is constructed in such a way that it will contradict itself depending on how you look at it.
I mean, but you could say that about anything. Depending on how you look at it, it could contradict itself. I mean,
well, I can't say that I exist and not exist at the same time in the same relationship. That would be a contradiction. But if I could say I exist,
also in the law, do you believe in the law of the excluded middle? That something is either true or it's false?
Yes, or it is what it is.
Then is that proposition? I mean, it's one proposition. It's not multiple propositions. It's a single proposition.
Again, no. I
so
think
either that proposition is true or it's false.
Okay, I think excluded middle and law of identity are going to be applications of non-contradiction. You got to look at the relationship of what you're talking about, and that's what's going to determine.
Yeah, but that's a single proposition. A proposition, you just said something can't be both true and false, or it either has to be true or false, and that's a single proposition. So there's not even multiple propositions to have like where you could say you can look at it different ways. I mean, it's a single proposition. I don't even know what you mean when you say that it depends on how you look at it.
Well, so if you want to say, what is it again? How do you say it?
This proposition is false.
All right, this proposition is false. I don't know. This proposition is false.
If it's true, it's false. If it's false, it's true. So that's
right. And it's just the way you're parsing it, though, right?
No, I mean, what do you mean how I'm parsing it?
Well, it's just saying
a proposition.
If you say this proposition is false, you would have to say that it is false. If it's false,
this is perfectly allowed within standard rules of logic. I mean, I'm not using like a weird logic.
No, I don't. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just trying to understand, to think about how to parse it, because this proposition is false, it is false in the sense that if it is true, then you're saying the proposition is false? I'm trying to
But
figure
if
out
it's false, then the proposition is true. Yeah, there's a bunch of like literature on it and whatnot, so I don't expect.
Well, is there a I mean, to me it seems like I can't lay out to you the exact idea of exactly how you're looking at it from a different angle, but it's almost like it seems like a trick question. I mean, what is there? I mean, do you know of any? There's no reconciliation to it, right?
Well, I think the main way people say to get around it is that that it just has to do with the semantic properties of the statement. I mean, there's like different people like try to get around in different ways, and one problem too is you can't even say it's neither true nor false, because then you can make I'll probably butcher it, but it's called like the revenge of the liar, where either this statement is true or it's neither true nor false or something like that, or whatever it is you try to get around with it. You can always reformulate it. I think one way I heard not too long ago is that you say that it's a result of the semantical properties of the statement, but not reflecting anything in reality. Like if you think, I guess it depends on what you think the relation between logic and reality is like. So in other words, you could have statements that seem to involve true contradictions and whatnot, but they don't reflect the actual reality. They're just a property of like language, basically, rather than a property of the world.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. I mean, it's a semantic trick that you make, just like with can't you do it with mathematics as well? Make things.
Well, there's Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which basically I don't know how well, there's a lot of self-referential problems that come up in all kinds of things. So, for instance, Frege tried to derive mathematics from logic, but he ran into a problem, which is like one way that people commonly say it is they call it Russell's barber paradox or whatever, where say you have a town and everybody in the town shaves everyone, or let me make sure I'm saying this right. There's a town with one barber, and the barber shaves everyone in the town that doesn't shave themselves. And then it's like, who shaves the barber? Well, he can't shave himself, because then, or like power. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see the idea. It's like one of those circular things. And you can't just say, well, maybe you can't allow those kinds of, like, so for instance, Russell tried to say that there was different classes that anytime you go from anytime you refer to one kind of level of classes or of sets, and you try to make self-referential like comments about it, that you have to treat those as like different classes of sets and stuff like that. There's like a lot of different ways to like try to get around it, but they come up a lot in logic and mathematics. And then Gödel's pretty much just said there's a way of making it so there's something that you can say mathematically just using basic arithmetic. It's kind of complicated because like the actual mathematics of it, but basically it's a mathematical sentence that is either true but you can't prove it's true, or it's it's a true contradiction. I think those are the two possibilities. And so most people take the route, because most people are like you, they don't want contradictions. So they say, well, there are statements that you can make mathematically, but that cannot be proven mathematically. So it's true, but there's no way of proving it, basically.
Okay.
Rather than saying it's contradictory. So. But I don't think any of that's even really needed for my.
So would it be that then they would appeal to mystery somehow, I guess?
Well, yeah. I mean, one thing to say is you can't prove it from within the system. So anytime you have one of these problems where you can't prove a statement, you can always add to your mathematical system. You can always add axioms or whatever. This comes up a lot in more modern mathematics, where certain things will seem like they could one possibility could be true or the other possibility, and there's no way to prove which one's mathematically the one like right way to do it. So what people a lot of times do is they'll just say, well, let's make an axiom and say like, well, let's say that the continuum hypothesis is true or something like that. So basically, instead of like proving which is mathematically correct, they'll just decide one. They'll say whichever one works best. We'll just like decide to make a new rule.
Okay, cool.
I mean, like I said, a lot of that stuff's kind of I don't know how far we want to get in that, but
well, yeah, I'm not smart enough for that. Okay, so let me
or pedantic enough.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, it's fascinating.
I find it interesting too. I wonder sometimes when I'm reading things about it why, but
okay, so let me see here. All right, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me white screen it. Okay, so all right, so do you understand my problem though with P2 that when you say that God is unchanging, and then link in the same argument when you switch from God, which is self-existent, to change and temporality being related to contingency. Well, let me ask you this: from your perspective, how do you understand what time to be?
I think that's a pretty difficult topic. I tend to lean towards the B theory just because of some difficulties.
Well, no, I mean, how do we perceive time though, as contingent creature? How do we measure it?
All kinds of different ways. I mean, observed regularity. I mean, how do we measure it?
We're basically watching contingent matter move, right? Whether you have the orbital or planetary movement or atomic, measuring the electron speed around an atom, whatever, it's always going to be matter relating to motion. That's what time is. All right. I've never heard anybody say anything other than that.
But motion implies time.
Right, and change. Time is necessarily related to change. So,
I mean, when you talk about motion, I just mean if you're trying to define time by motion, but time, like motion requires time.
Well, that's the only way we can measure it. We watch different bodies.
We use clocks, yeah.
Yeah, so we just watch matter moving and relating to each other and interchanging, and so that's what time is. So, what was time before matter?
There's like, do you mean like cosmologically, like what if we go back far enough in time, what happens?
Well, how would you know what time was if there were no matter?
If you had no clocks, you would not be able to, well, you wouldn't exist for one, but if there was no clocks, there'd be no way to measure time.
Yeah, so would it be fair to say that we don't know what time is apart from observing contingent matter moving or relating to motion?
I don't know what time is.
That's the only thing we understand about it.
Well, I mean, in physics, there's different ways of understanding it, but I mean, I guess I'll follow you. I mean, I would say, I mean, we measure time by the change in regularities.
Yeah, and so I mean, we can't even conceive of what it would be. So okay, so let me say this. So from your perspective, is matter eternal?
Is matter eternal? I don't know. Like, has there always been matter and energy? I don't know.
Okay. I would assert that which changes cannot be eternal. And what I'm going to say there are two.
Well, you didn't say a specific piece of matter. You said like matter in general. I mean, you could have something
matter that is contingent in nature. Well, and matter has to be contingent because matter is
a piece of matter needs to be contingent. I mean, well, I'm accepting right now the whole metaphysical necessity contingency thing, but let's say metaphysically, like if something comes into and goes out of existence, then it's contingent. Yeah.
Right. Or changes. Anything that changes must be. Let me give you my four. I don't think I.
Well, its properties are contingent in that case. That you could have something with changing properties that always existed. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's making an I can't accept that because you can't separate something from its property.
Oh, really?
I mean, that's something. There must be a correspondence to something to its ontology.
So things that are just like collections of properties.
Well, there's got to be some coherence. In other words, I don't see how you can say something could be eternal, and also be contingent at the same time in the same ontology. Just say, well, it's property. You could say its properties are contingent, but this is my big argument with my atheist friends. The universe, they'll say the universe, the properties or the specifics of the universe are all changing, but the universe itself is self-existent, and that violates a lot of identity.
How so?
Because you're saying the same ontology is both becoming and unchanging at the same time in the same relationship.
Well, it depends on depends on what you mean. So if you took like a B theory of time, you could have just like if I go to the top of a mountain, it's colder there. If I go to the bottom of the mountain, it's warmer. Different places could have different properties, but that doesn't mean that the whole thing
we're not talking about having just specific different properties like warm and cold or something like that. We're talking about pure being and becoming. You cannot have both those. For example, all right, let me use this example. A lot of guys, this is what they'll say. They'll say, all right, what do they say? I'm making a composition fallacy. I'm saying that there's
the whole parts of the universe
do not equal the whole, and what they'll say is all the parts are contingent, but as a whole it's self-existent. So think about this: all the parts are happening, and when you add a whole bunch of happenings together, they somehow never happened. You can't do that. They're mutually exclusive.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean. Like if you're talking about like the whole universe, like let's say, I mean, if you had a block universe view, you could say the whole universe just has always existed.
Right.
Like each I right now have a certain experience. The me in the future has a different experience. Like it appears to us like there's like a sequence of experiences,
yes,
but the whole thing just exists eternally or whatever, or out timelessly. If like the composition fallacy. Well, I mean, it's mostly just like every person, like here's a composition fallacy. Every person has a mother, therefore humanity has like one mother or something like that. Like you could like, just because each part of it has like a certain property doesn't mean the collection as a whole has a property, or I mean that kind of thing.
Right. And I was going to say something and I forgot what it was.
Oh, sorry.
No, you didn't interrupt me. It was something, a point I wanted to make regarding something regarding the composition fallacy, but does it make? Sorry, go ahead.
Even if time like persisted, you could have a view that like even if presentism, like only the present moment exists, you could have. I mean, pretty much any view has certain problems with it, but one view would be that the universe started in like a cosmic seed that was like a four-dimensional timeless seed, and then time like arose out of that. So you'd have a timeless initial state, but then it came, and a lot of these, I mean, you could compare that to like for instance, I know this isn't your view, but William Lane Craig has the view that God existed timelessly outside of time before creation and then entered into time with creation. And part of the reason he believes that is because he's a really big presentist. He wants to say only now exists, and like.
Yeah, he has his theology proper is atrocious. I struggle with him in a major way. I mean, I think he's really sloppy theologically, just horrid, I think. But all right, so what I wanted to say is, so if you want to posit a B theory and be consistent, you have to affirm that change is an illusion, right?
Not that it's that coming into and going out of existence is an illusion, not change. I mean, like the color of my shirt changes as you go down the stripes or whatever, but that's not that the change is an illusion. It's just not like when one stripe is up here and another's down here. They both exist. They don't. One doesn't go in and out of existence.
Okay, so if you walked in front of a speeding truck, would your death be real?
Yes, you would stop existing in the temporal series after that.
Okay, so change would be an actual state of affair for you.
It would. I mean, things. Yeah, I mean, in the same way that here's red and here's white, there's a change.
Okay, so change is real.
At one point in time, you exist. At the next point in time, you don't exist. But both would all exist together. I mean, one wouldn't go. You would like yesterday. You would still exist, and tomorrow you wouldn't exist. But the whole series of yous would exist.
Okay, but there was change within that, right? Real change.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, it depends on what. Like I said, if you mean like time, like only the present exists, change in that way, then no, that wouldn't be true. But change in the sense that at different points in time there would be different things.
Right, but you're positing a B theory where there are no different points of time. There is no change. Time is just a measurement of change. I'm sorry.
There would be different points of time. It would just be it's like space. Over there and here both exist. They're different points in space, but they're not.
And there's movement within that space, right? From one ontology to another, from being and not being, in a sense, for you. Right?
Well, like my hand, like I exist here, I don't exist over here. Like I still in one sense exist, but I just don't exist right there.
Well, that's the spatial measurement, but I'm talking about a time measurement and change in your ontology.
I know, that's what I was saying.
Your hand was in front of your hand, and then it's not in front of your hand. There was a movement of time. There's a measurement of change in that action, right?
Yes.
And it's real. It's real.
Well, on A or B theory, it's real. Yeah.
Well, see, I don't understand with the B theory. It seems to me like it's special pleading. We say, oh, well, it doesn't really change.
Think of a movie reel, like an old-fashioned movie reel, or I guess they say that has the whole movie on it. It has the beginning of the movie, it has the middle of the movie, it has the end of the movie. But when you watch it's like, it would be like the analogy of this. As you're projecting the movie, as soon as it goes to the projector, you burn the other end, and right before it gets into the projector, you make the new frame or whatever, and only the frame that's being projected exists. But the other view is that the whole reel still exists, and there's still a beginning of the movie, there's still a middle of the movie, there's still an end of the movie. It's just all like the person in the middle of the movie is like anguished because they're in a horrible bind. The person at the beginning of the movie doesn't know that the horrible thing's about to happen. The person at the end of the movie is relieved that it all worked out okay or whatever. But the whole thing still exists, even though at each point in time, at each frame in the movie, there's a different event taking place. And they feel like they're in that event, but the whole series still exists, whether or not and independent of that.
Okay, but the whole series exists as a succession of events, right?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you're just saying there's a huge ontology of becoming.
I mean, they call it like the
And
black
it's all
universe because it all exists. It's like the change is the same as the change, like spatial change. It's like sometimes they call it four-dimensionalism. Like each place in space has a different property, just like each place in time has a different property, and it's and there's, I mean, those aren't the only two views. Like it kind of gets simplified to that, but I mean, again, I mean, all this stuff gets complicated once you like. I think time is one of the most confusing. Like, I think if your brain doesn't hurt when you really try to think about what time is, then you're probably not thinking hard enough. So
that's probably true.
I mean, 'cause it is kind of trippy when you try to think like, well, if yesterday didn't exist, like, what does it even mean to say that like I had a sandwich yesterday if nothing? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of issues with it. Like,
yeah, I agree.
It's like,
right.
Do you know the famous Augustine quote about time? Like, it's something like, when no one asks me about, I'm paraphrasing, when no one asks me about time, I know exactly what it is, but when somebody asks me to tell them what it is, I know not what, or something like that.
Yeah.
It seems like a very obvious.
Well, and that's the point I'm going to make, is that we have a limited understanding, and so in your argument, let me go back to it here.
Sure.
In your argument, you're implying something of all right. If something changes, it is necessarily in time, and my question I want to say is, if we don't know what time is outside of contingent matter, we can't postulate about it, but we can say that we are ignorant of that. So what it seems to me what you're saying in this argument, that God, since he changes, he makes decisions, therefore he must be contingent. Is that somewhat what you're saying?
It's an argument by contradiction. It's saying that if you believe God is unchanging and you believe that presentism or that temporal change is real, then I try to show that leads to a contradiction, basically.
Right. And so I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was going to add also, and you assume the normal like attributes of like omniscience to God and everything.
Okay. Yeah. So what I am saying is that God is atemporal, and temporality is defined, as we understand it, as being contingent matter related to motion. And since contingency, by definition, cannot be self-existent or eternal, therefore, God, there is no contradiction. There is no difficulty.
So you just said, as we understand it. So let's say, so God understands it one way, as like this totality of facts, and we understand it as it seems like things go in and out of existence. Obviously, one of us is right and one of us is wrong. And I'm guessing you probably don't want to say God is wrong about that.
No, I want to say I do not want to jettison rational coherence. That's what I'm saying. The rational coherence dictates that becoming cannot exist in and of itself. It's an effect by definition.
Becoming cannot exist by itself?
Yeah, are you familiar with the controversy between Heraclitus and Parmenides?
About like what? Yeah, that thinks.
Heraclitus said everything is changing.
Everything changes. Yeah.
And there's nothing. And Parmenides said whatever is. In other words, there's got to be some kind of ontology that's unchanging, because if everything is pure change, then it's nothing really. And so even us, there's a continuity in our existence.
It's that if something like something either exists or it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, then it can't just like come into existence. But if it, and
then nihil fit. Out of nothing, nothing comes. And I've had many arguments with my atheist friends too, and I think they've been trained by modern cosmologists like Lawrence Krauss to with his word games to try to say things like nothing doesn't really mean nothing in a lot of physicists today, that it means empty space or vacuum or something like that. But if you want to be,
Lawrence Krauss does horrible philosophy, but
I just anyway, I won't go there. But anyway, so But nothing, a literal nothing, and this is something that maybe you'll agree with me on this. My atheist friends do not want to agree with me. You cannot even think about a literal nothing, right?
That's Parmenides. Yeah, that's what Parmenides says. Yeah.
So if you're going to say, and so my atheist friends say, oh yeah, I can think of nothing. I can imagine nothing. I say, no, it's not. So you would agree to the idea that if there ever were a time when there were absolutely nothing, then nothing would exist, right?
Well, I think that's kind of, you're almost contradicting yourself. There's no time when nothing, there's no, there's in one way you can think about nothing. Like, this is the way I can think about nothing. There are no unicorns outside. I'm not thinking about unicorns that don't exist. I'm thinking about the fact that there aren't any.
Okay, now you're making Gonlo's mistake with Anselm's arch nemesis. We're not talking about unicorns, or we're not talking about islands, as Gonlo said. We're talking about existence itself. We're talking about being.
No, I wasn't saying that. I'm saying that. When I think to myself, unicorns don't exist, I'm not thinking about a non-existent unicorn, right?
Mm-hmm. But you are thinking, right?
But about what?
You are thinking, and you can say you're thinking about nothing, but you yourself are doing something, right?
Yeah.
So you are something. Pardon me?
Sorry, what did you say?
I said you are thinking, you yourself are thinking and trying to contemplate nothing, right? It's not possible to think about nothing because the thinker has to be.
Well, yeah, yes, you're thinking. Yeah.
So if there were absolutely nothing, something we can't even contemplate about, but just for the sake of the argument, we were to say there are absolutely.
What does it even mean?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what does it even mean to say if there were nothing? Like, was, is, those are existential.
That's
those
right.
are saying if
That's
there
exactly right. So
nothing.
Since something exists, something has to always had to exist. That's the logical corollary.
At every moment in time, something has to have existed.
No, period. Time is just matter relating to motion. Matter is not eternal because it's changing. It's contingent by definition. Contingency cannot exist without aseity or without self-existence.
What would it mean for something to not exist at a not time?
Something to not exist at not a time. So you're saying that time is somehow necessary? Does time have some kind of ontology?
Like I said, I'm kind of an eternalist, but I think if time is a real objective fact of reality, I have a hard time thinking that there was a first moment of time.
Yeah, but time, you would agree that time is not just some thing, it's just a description of what we see, matter moving, right? There's not some kind of thing like a big clock or something called time. Or a person called time.
My view, like the eternalist view, is that it's is that you've got a four-dimensional space-time manifold, Minkowski, that a block universe is the way I kind of lean. Like I said, I'm not super. I'm probably 58% on that side of it. Mm-hmm. That it's a B theory. That in which case there's no okay. Here's one. For instance, Hartle, and all this stuff, like I said, pretty much any of this can be debated and it's complicated or whatever. But there's a Hartle-Hawking model. Let's say we did say time was a real thing and the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist or whatever. If we go further and further back in time, according to Hartle-Hawking, one of the main interpretations, eventually you get to this, when the universe gets small enough, near the Planck epoch, it becomes a Euclidean four space. It doesn't have a temporal, there's no before and after. It's all just one. So it's almost like that the universe came out of a tiny little block universe and then sprung into existence from there. That would be one possibility. But there's a lot of, if you want to speculate.
Here's my problem with that, Ben, because that which is self-existent, you're going to say it's eternal, it's self-existent, it cannot change because it is subject upon that which enacted the change. And you're saying there was a change. Again, you're violating the law of identity.
Wait, which part are you talking about?
Well, you're talking about the, what is it, the Hartle-Hawking or whatever theory, where there was this this block universe and everything came out of that.
Yeah.
So again, if it's the same ontology, and something is eternal, that is self-existent, that is not dependent, cannot change by definition. This is why I say you can't be both changing and pure being at the same time, well, definitionally.
So I'm not sure what pure being and I mean, I know a bit about Aristotelian and stuff.
Well, it would be self-existent. It's just self-existent. I mean, it's not dependent on something else. It cannot change by definition. It's got to be pure being.
Well, the initial state wouldn't change. It'd be like this. Okay, as you go back in time, eventually causality and time breaks down, and you enter this state that where particles and space-time doesn't have classical trajectories. And then as you go forward in time, it would the interference would all cancel out, and particles would begin to take on classical trajectories. Space-time would look like we normally see it.
Okay, well, that's just magic talk. That's like evolution dude it. You know, I mean, it's not giving a real answer. I mean, you're just saying, you're saying, R.C. Sproul talks about, there are Martians on the back of the moon that eat green cheese. But you can't see them because they don't like cameras, and if you take a camera back there, you can't see them. So you're saying there is this universe that we don't understand, but somehow it makes everything work. That something can be and not be at the same time.
I'm not saying that. There's a mathematically rigorous, it's physics. I mean, there's like a mathematical.
But it's got to be based in philosophy or logic. That's my problem. And
it's mathematical logic, yeah.
Okay, but just saying it's mathematic doesn't mean it's coherent. In other words, you've got to deal with this difficulty.
Okay. So I'm not saying it's coherent, but in order to say it's not coherent, you have to show where the mathematics.
Well, that's my point. Something cannot be pure actuality and change, but you cannot have contingency without pure actuality. I'm sorry.
Where did I say there was?
Well, you were explaining the paradigm. And you were saying there was a time when we don't understand. You said something breaks down. Would you say causality breaks down, or is not? And then it becomes causality through the process.
The trajectories of classical particles they don't follow classical trajectories, I guess is how you could say it. The path integral, each individual electron and proton and photon and whatever, no longer follows a classical path and instead follows it's a series where there's not a before and an after. It's
just special pleading, though.
What's that?
You're just special pleading. You're just saying, oh, well, it's just this world where the things that we understand now is just different than now, but it doesn't have. You got change, but it's not really change. It's within a block universe or something. It's no whether you want to do it then or you want to do it now. It doesn't matter because you got to make it work now if it's true. You got to have the logic. The logic has to follow. I'm sorry.
Like I said, it's logically rigorous mathematical model.
It's not. You haven't.
Where's the fault in the equations?
Yeah, but you're just saying, oh, they make equations, therefore it's logically coherent. Show me how something can be both.
I never said it's logically coherent. You're the one that's saying it's not.
You're saying it's logically rigorous, didn't you?
It could be. I grant it could be logically incoherent, but you have to actually show that. You can't just say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you have something that's changing, it by definition cannot be self-existent. It's dependent upon that which enacted the change.
I don't even know what self-exist. I still don't know what self-existent.
It exists in and of itself. It is not subject to another. In other words, it's not contingent. It's the opposite of contingent.
Okay.
It would be necessary being.
Like it exists in all possible worlds. Is that what you mean?
Well, I don't even know that all possible worlds, because the possible worlds are possible. I mean, I just don't understand.
We're talking about these kind of statements, so I don't even know what it means outside of that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I don't find it very interesting, I guess, to me.
Okay. But but it does have to. I mean, you have to mean something logically consistent, as you agree.
That's right.
So I described the whole block universe thing, different places have different times. Is that incoherent?
Well, no, well, from my perspective, if block universe is true, or if B theory is true for us, in other words, if it's true, and you're saying it's true for everything, then it logically follows to me that all change must be an illusion, because it's not happening. There must not be any real happening. It's just an illusion.
Well, it's not like we know. I mean, it's like, okay, heat seems like you touch a hot stove. It seems like, that's hot. That's like, it seems like there's heat. And for a long time, they thought it was a substance, this fluid called caloric. And then they found out, well, it's not. There's not really heat. There's just atoms bouncing around. And the mean molecular energy of the atoms bouncing around is what heat is. That's what heat is. It's not something in addition. Mm-hmm. So you could say, well, then heat is an illusion. In a certain sense, it is. Just like the sunset, in a certain sense, is an illusion. But there's still sunsets. There's still heat. It's like we just found out it's not exactly like we thought it was.
Mm-hmm. And you're not going to put your hand over a hot stove.
Yeah, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. Oh, it's not real heat. It's just molecular motion. And I'm gonna.
That's what I'm trying to do. I want to push you to consistency with your view. In other words, and this is what R.C. Sproul says. He says anybody who's going to make these special leaps, it's going to be forced and it's going to be temporary. In other words, if you're going to make.
Let me explain something to you really quick. I'm not saying, like, I think anytime you get back far enough in time in cosmology, you're doing speculation. We don't really know what happened. So
but it's got to be coherent.
Well,
whatever you speculate, it's got to follow coherence. Otherwise, then we have no coherence at all.
Whatever is true has to be coherent. So, but as far as like,
aren't you saying the view is true? What you're trying to postulate?
No, I don't know if it's true. I'm saying, like, we don't know. We don't really know that much.
But if we want to make true statements about what we think happened, which is what I think we were trying to do, aren't we all trying to save the phenomenon of existence to make sense out of everything?
Yeah, and I was saying there's one possibility is that. One possibility is it just keeps going on in the past forever.
Which would be an infinite regress of effects without a cause, right?
No, every effect would have a cause. There would just be
but would that cause itself be an effect before it was in a cause?
Would it be an effect before it was a cause? No, there'd be a series of cause and effect forever and ever.
But all right, so you got this chain, infinite chain of cause and effect, right? Mm-hmm. This cause, this effect. Was this cause an effect before it was a cause?
Well, every effect is a cause and every cause isn't it? I mean.
Okay, so you're saying all causes are just effects then, right?
It's like.
In their ontological sense, they're all pure becoming.
If I push over a domino, that causes the next domino to hit, which causes the next one. Each one's an effect and a cause. It's just a cause of the next thing.
So are you familiar with the distinction between instrumental and efficient cause?
Yes. Okay. Well, an efficient, you mean like causes per se and per accidents?
Yes. And so an instrumental cause would be more accidental, I guess. It would be something that happens. It would be something that is used. So all of the causes you're describing to me right now are instrumental. They are not efficient in doing something. So some people say, oh, well, how was I born? Well, my parents procreated, I was born. Well, your parents did not create you. Your parents were instrumental causality in you. So I think it was Francisco Suarez. I'm sorry?
Well, I mean, I would say in a sense they created you, in a sense they just formed you from other stuff.
But they were instrumental in their causality. They were not creating me in the ultimate sense. You cannot create. Well, I'm just saying. I think it was.
They didn't conjure you from nothingness.
Right, they didn't. They were instrumental, and since all matter is contingent, then the one that is efficient must be the one that gives existence to contingency. So what you're doing is an instrumental cause is not an ultimate cause. It is really an effect that is used as a cause.
Well, but in infinite series, it
only compounds the problem infinitely. That's all it does.
How so?
It's an effects without a cause.
Every effect has a cause.
Ben, take that back as far as you can, as far as you can. Keep on going, keep on going. You say, oh, it's an infinite or whatever. Forever, you have effects without a cause, or something being.
Now you have causes and effects. You have a infinite series of causes and effects.
Yes, but every one of those causes is an effect before it is a cause. In other words, it's not efficient, it's instrumental.
Yes, I mean, it's in a cause and then it affects the next thing.
But before that, it was an effect. So you can't go back if say things are happening forever. So if eventually you're going to say something has to be and not be at the same time in the same relationship, because you can't have being without becoming.
Why? It's an infinite series that keeps going. Okay, what's the highest number?
The numbers are not ontological status. That's a different category.
So you're anomalous also.
I'm sorry?
You're
I don't know.
anomalous?
I don't know. I really don't know what I am on that. I'm not smart. I only listen to R.C. Sproul, so I don't know that much about these things. So
how about what's the last moment of time? When's that going to happen?
Well, that would be when contingency no longer has ontology.
And then time will just end?
Insofar as it's material moving, yes.
Okay, and then it'll just be a timeless state. So
again, I don't know what time is apart from matter moving to motion, but yeah, insofar as you define it as that, yes.
All right. Let's look at another example. I just don't. There's perfectly again. I mean, what's his name? Eric Cantor. What's his first name? You could create. There's mathematically rigorous descriptions of infinite sets, and I don't. You said it seems like special pleading when you say, well, it just can't keep going back. I mean, that's what an infinite set is. Something that keeps going. No,
an infinite set of things that happen. That's my point. It's not an infinite set necessarily, but it has to be. You cannot have. Again, it's all based on the law of non-contradiction. You can't have stuff happening before it exists. There's got to be an ultimate self-existent.
I never said there was.
You never said there was.
It's a chain. Every link in the chain has a cause, and each
every link is moving, though, right? It's changing.
Well, it's a series of causes and effects. I mean, you could say
it's changing, moving. Right? So remember Heraclitus. He says everything is pure change, and Parmenides said no. They fell into there was deep skepticism in the Greek world, and Socrates showed on the scene, brought some salvation. But people became skeptical over that because they didn't resolve that issue. But it's a valid problem. You've got to have both being and becoming. You can't have pure becoming. Things is pure change.
Well, I mean, only in as much as I'm not talking about pure change. I don't know what pure change is as opposed to just everyday change. I'm just talking about everyday change.
Well, I'm just saying you can't have something that changes. And first of all, there's got to be a continuity in that being that's not changing. But if everything is pure change, then there's no ontological identity, and you cannot have pure change.
I'm not talking about again. I'm not talking about. I don't know what you mean by pure change. I just said it's an infinite series. Everything goes back.
Of changing stuff, happening stuff.
Well, just like now, things change. I mean, not a special kind of change.
Special kind of change. Well,
I'm talking about now. Things change.
Okay.
In the past, things. So it's
Ben, I need to get going. I got to finish up some work.
Sorry.
But I enjoyed this. It was nice to meet you. You're very engaging and very charitable too. I appreciate your kindness. And
I almost every time I have a conversation, so it's good to talk to somebody that's thought about a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, it's a lot of times I'll engage people and all they're doing is apologetics for their perspective, and there's not much exchange. And of course, that's what I want to do too. But I want to live my life in accordance with what is true. And if I'm wrong, I'm open to that, and I want to change. But I
think we're both in agreement. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said I think we're both in agreement there. I have my views, but I'm also relatively skeptical. As I've said multiple times in the conversation, a lot of this stuff's pretty complicated. I don't claim to understand it all. So. Yeah.
And I think that both of us, though, want to influence others from what we perceive to be true, which is a good thing. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, and we are all, both of us are searching for salvation as best we can. Now I'm talking about, I have a message of eternal salvation, but you're searching for salvation as far as you perceive it to be. Would that be, like Plato said, we're out to save the phenomenon of existence? Do you agree with that?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by salvation in this context. I mean,
well, everything you do in your life is to promote existence. In other words, you don't do it, you fail in that. But the reason you're on here engaging with me is because you want to find out what's true, because it fortifies existence in some sense. That's what we want. Everybody does everything to save their life. And I have these arguments with my atheist friends, and I even say, even if you're pro euthanasia, the reason that you are that way is because you've just given up. In other words, you don't want this person to suffer anymore, but you feel like it's the end of the road and there's no more hope. But it's just because you've given up. But if you could, let me say this, Ben, if you could somehow figure out some way to make life meaningful, and you could live a meaningful existence that was pleasurable for all eternity, would you not jump on that? And don't look at me as a Christian. I'm just saying, you as a material, wherever you are.
Yeah, I'm not an atheist too. I think it's kind of weird. A lot of the atheists say, like, well, even if God exists, I don't want to.
Well, we're all seeking to promote. We're all hardwired. We're hardwired for existence. In other words, we all have this goal, this teleology or teleonomy, if you want to call it that, even that we are seeking to survive. And every time an evolutionist finds a new species, they rejoice and they say, "This is awesome! This is so cool!" Or if we can find some vaccine to lengthen life, we all say the goal has been met. Every single society is like that. And the question I want to ask you is to think about it: why is there teleology unintentionally? Unintentionality to give us. This hardwired goal for us that's so important to us. Anyway, that's another conversation. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, you say something you want to.
I will say, if you gotta go, if it's like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory situation, you got a golden ticket for eternal life. I'm open. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I just like to make that point with my friends that people don't really think about that, especially in the skeptical world, that they're really all about salvation, but we all are. And so what we're trying to do is to find that which can, promote existence, and it's just something to think about. That's what we're all about. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could have a long conversation about all this, but it was good talking to you.
It was nice to meet you, Ben, and I'm glad you put a face to your avatar, and I'm sure we'll be talking on Facebook more, and hopefully we'll have some more hangouts.
I hope you have a good rest of your day. If I ever need some teeth, I'll track you down.
Yeah, sounds good, man. And if I ever need music lessons, actually, do you ever make videos of your stuff?
I did like a long time ago. I'm kind of like, I thought about doing more online stuff. I posted a few things, but not really lately. I'm so busy with like lessons and everything that it's. I'd like to, but
you should make some videos. Just make some videos, and you should come to the G+ community. It's JD, I think, is watching us. He posted something on Facebook, probably talking smack about me. But but the community there. Are you familiar with the G+ community at all?
Not too much now, actually.
It's well, you probably don't have enough time to waste on there. But I've joked with the people there. I say Facebook is like Leave It to Beaver, and G+ is like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Those guys.
Is there like chat? Is it like there's
a lot of hangouts. People have hangouts like this a lot, and it's called the Great Debate Community, where you've got JD. Do you know JD Kane on there?
I've seen his posts.
Okay, he's got a show called Talking Stuff Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
For stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, every Tuesday he has a show, and it's basically a cross between Mad Max and Oprah Winfrey. They get around, just talk smack about theists and make jokes about them, talk about how stupid they were, and their favorite word is bellend and all kinds of vulgar. But anyway, it's fun. I mean, I love these guys, but it's so funny. It's a very lively community, and it's not very big, but it's very lively, and we have a lot of fun, and it's enjoyable. So I don't know if you ever get bored. But anyway, make videos I know Christopher Mouty's made these videos. He's one of the guys who's kind of big in there, and he's a musician. He's a bassist. He makes beautiful. He'll just play one along, play a riff or whatever, and then a song, and it's just enjoyable. And if you ever have time, anything better to do, you got to make a video and post it on G+.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, because I really enjoy music.
Sometimes Facebook can get a little bit vitriolic, so it's good.
Oh yeah, especially on the Unbelievable page, it gets a little rough. But most places on Facebook, it's pretty tame. Especially G+, man. Those guys, they got the filthiest mouth, and I mean, it's so funny, and I don't think they realize how filthy they are. That to them, it's just their world. But it's very rough. I mean, you got to watch out. I kind of stand at periphery in some sense because it gets ugly between the theists and the atheists. I feel like the Christianity is represented very poorly on there.
Anything I can do to help make things less.
Well, I think the guys, because of your knowledge, the big thing now is philosophy. Okay, there's a couple of guys. Ozymandias Ramsey's the second. He calls himself. He is a professional philosopher. He's about to get his PhD in philosophy, and JD's friends with him, and they have hangouts, and Ozzy will educate the community on these things because atheism is moving to a new stage, whereas the generation before, they poo-pooed philosophy, they hated it, and now there's a respect for philosophy coming along, and Ozzy is a part of that, and there's a guy, Gary Edwards is another guy who's from England. He's a philosopher as well, and I just had a hangout with another guy that I didn't know him. He was very nice. We didn't talk that much. I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, there's three guys, and he's an atheist blogger, I think, and I think he said he was a professional philosopher for a while. So they would very much welcome you and enjoy having your interaction in that community. In fact, I'll probably have them kind of, but you gotta just come in here sometime and join a hangout because they would love to have your interaction and insights with their conversation. Yeah. So with that, I'll let you go, and we'll talk again, I'm sure. And it's very nice to meet you, and I appreciate you. And we'll talk again.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we'll see you, Ben. Bye.
Have a good day.